Is reading more one of your resolutions for 2026? It is for me. For most of us, reading more is just code for reading anything at all these days. That's because in the age of social media content, we're already reading 24/7. We're just not reading anything meaningful. But like the man who looks after his body and does so by focusing not just on what exercises he does, but also the food he consumes, so too must we, in our efforts to look after our minds, focus on the media we consume. That's why many of us, we already recognize the problem. It's not that we're underfed when it comes to reading, it's that we're malnourished. And the solution is to read great books, not to doom scroll. But how do we get back into reading? How do we create a reading habit that we will actually enjoy, and more importantly, one we'll stick to? That's what we're talking about in today's video. When developing a new habit, you want to give yourself the best chance for success. And yet, when many people try to get back into reading, they do the following. They'll plonk themselves down in a semi-comfortable spot in a distraction-rich environment, and they'll begin reading. And then a few minutes go by and they realize they've read the same sentence 7 or 8 times. It might be because their partner or their children are in the room watching TV or playing. Maybe they're at a cafe, it's just too noisy. Or maybe it's as simple as you have your phone next to you and it keeps buzzing and you keep looking at it, only to find out it's that one group chat sounding off for the 18th time. Whatever the cause is, the solution is the same. You need to engineer your environment for success. In simpler terms, you need to create an environment that you would actually enjoy reading in. Now, this is highly individual, so you will need to ask yourself honestly that what you like when you're reading. What do you like it to be like when you read? Some people like to read in absolute silence. Some people like to have a little bit of background noise. Okay, so maybe you can wake up before everyone else, or go somewhere that you can be alone. Or if you prefer the background noise of a cafe, maybe find a cafe that isn't too loud or busy. Or maybe it's just that you like some lounge music playing in the background, okay? You can set that up. Personally, I like reading in absolute silence. Does that mean I never go to cafes and read? I do that from time to time, but my favorite place to read is in my living room at home in the evening. Got the wood burning stove lit, flanked by maybe a Yankee candle or two, flickering, giving a warm glow to a dimly lit room. It's cozy. I'll throw on a thick cardigan, make myself a cappuccino. You starting to get the idea? If you want to make reading enjoyable, you have to make reading enjoyable. But that's my experience. I'm more interested in what you think. Let me know down in the comments below. What is your ideal reading setup? What does it look like? What does it feel like? Another mistake I see people make, and I have been guilty of this myself, is that they tell themselves that they really need to get back into reading, maybe after several years of not really reading anything at all. And what do? They find the hardest book possible to read. Whether it's something incredibly long, like The Count of Monte Cristo, or maybe it's just something that text-wise, it's really hard to get through and make any progress. Things like the Iliad, okay, they can be tricky to read. Let's think back to our analogy about the man who looks after his body and his health. At the beginning of his journey, does he walk into the gym, go up to the bench press and immediately attempt to bench 400 pounds? No. He starts with humility, okay? You have to be humble. He builds the strength over time. So this is what I would recommend, if for no other reason than it's how I got back into reading a few years ago, and I've seen it work for several of my clients that I coach. Be humble and start with smaller books. If you want some of my favorite short books, here are a few recommendations. The Old Man and the Sea by Ernest Hemingway. This is about 100 pages. You could get through this pretty easily. Also got White Nights by Dostoevsky. It's about 80 pages in length. Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, it's about 110 pages, or at least the version I have is. Now, if those books sound like the kind of things that you would only ever read if all the other books in existence went up in flames, then you're in luck, because that's exactly my next point. You should pick books that you will actually enjoy reading, that are about things that you're actually interested in, not books that other people are telling you to read. You need to know yourself. If you like dystopian novels, then Fahrenheit 451, Brave New World, 1984 will be great. You'll love them. But if you hate the genre, then don't bother. Don't slog your way through it. If you like short, concise writing, then try Hemingway. If you like grand descriptions of something as simple as a leaf on a tree than go for Tolkien. Again, I would encourage you to think of reading like a muscle, or maybe it's more accurate to say that your attention is the muscle. And social media consumption has caused it to atrophy. So you'll have a hard time slogging through books and genres you don't like until you've redeveloped this muscle a little bit. So start with what you actually enjoy. Now, there's an overwhelming amount of pressure online, mainly in the self-help space, about maximizing productivity, and this has spilled over into the subject of reading. We're now flooded with tutorials and guides on how to read 100+ books a year, how to speed read, tutorials on how if you read the first, middle, and the last sentence or word in a sentence in a book, and you do that for every single line, then your eyes and mind will automatically pick up all the rest in between, and you can just scan down the page and move on. Disgusting. Now, don't get me wrong, I do this, but I only do it when I'm scanning CVs, newspaper articles, scientific journals. I don't do this when I'm reading a book. To me, a book demands time and respect. I'm not personally into reading for the pure purpose of getting to the end of a year and being able to announce on social media how many books I've conquered in the previous 365 days. I'm more interested in reading to learn more about life from the combined experience of these great authors who came before us. The last thing I want is to get to the end of a long book and then maybe one of my friends ask me what I thought of it, and I have nothing to say because I can't remember anything about the book because of how I rushed through it. That's a nightmare. So instead, I read slow with purpose. Often, I've got a pencil in one hand where I'll write in the margins about any particularly interesting phrases or sections. I'll write my thoughts about what's going on in the story or how the characters are acting. It helps me analyze what's being communicated by the book, helps me remember what I've read as well. Now, a lot of people might struggle with this if they don't follow my next piece of advice. They may struggle to read calmly and slowly without worrying that they won't hit their reading goals at this pace. Well, that actually brings us to the next point. Set aside time to read. Some of my clients are writers as part of their job, whether that's writing actual books, novels, maybe just journal articles. They all encounter the same problem. They can't find time to write. Whenever they tell me that, I always picture the hunter from Jumanji hunting down the rarest of beasts. Time to write. Like it's some creature out there that they're finally going to actually find and be able to wrestle with. But the truth is, I tell them, you will never find time to write. You must make time to write. And it's the same for reading. You need to make time to read. I always advise people getting into reading again after maybe some time away, that they should dedicate a regular time each day to reading if they really want to stick to it and see any progress. Too many people write and read in sprees. And what I mean by that is they go weeks or months without reading. They feel guilty because it was their New Year's resolution, and then they read for 3 to 4 hours straight, tire themselves out, and then they go on for another 3-week hiatus. How much better would it feel to carve out even just 30 minutes each day for reading? And if you stick to that for 3-4 weeks, you will have doubled the amount of reading that the spree reader accomplished in his horrific outburst. And what's more, you'll probably have retained more of what you read as well. Now here's an optional one for you, sort of a secret weapon of mine. Write about what you read. This is on the subject of remembering what you read. It's important we be kind to ourselves. There's no way to remember everything you read unless you have a photographic memory, which most of us unfortunately lack. I certainly do. Now, I do have a strategy for remembering what you read, or at least some of it, even for understanding what you read more deeply. Something that will enable you to talk intelligently about the books you've read next time you're at a dinner party, let's say. And it's simple, but it's not easy. This secret weapon is to write about what you read. Now, this is likely the bit most people will switch off this video because writing is just not something they want to get involved in. But if you're still watching, then well done. Now, I say it's simple because you don't need to be a professional writer or author to write about what you read. All you need is a pencil and some paper. The margins will do for starters. Here's how I do it. I'll read a book. I'll make my notes in the margins. And then after I've finished the book, I'll usually spend a few days ruminating on the story, putting it together logically in my mind before beginning to write a mini essay of sorts about my thoughts on the book. Now, the reason this is so effective is because from a scientific perspective, the act of writing, what's actually happening is you are actively constructing a meaning behind the story of the book in your mind. You're making the meaning. Hence why I personally find that when I do this for a book, I can always talk about it much more coherently afterwards, whether it's the story, the characters, what I thought of it all. So please, don't count yourself out from this last tip just because you're not an author, okay? Give it a go at least once for at least one book, and then let me know down in the comments how it goes. So folks, thank you very much for watching. Let me know down in the comments below, what do you love the most about reading? Or let me know if you have any book recommendations that you would love me to talk about in the channel. Post them down below. As always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.